What's up, everybody? How are you? Happy Wednesday. The month is over. It is what it is. But it's a beautiful day, and wherever you are, from whatever city you're in, God is good as long as we're here. Shout out to all the birthday people, and um, prayers to anybody that's lost a loved one during this time. People are still transitioning from whatever illness is. You don't know where somebody's at in their world, in their personal life. This is Real Talk Chronicles. I'm your host, Bill Forrest. I got my co-host, Richard Williams, with me tonight, and we got a beautiful panel. With that, and saying that, if you're watching us from YouTube, please subscribe to it and share it. If you're watching us from Facebook, appreciate that love too. It's always a blessing. Uh, at the bottom of the screen, you can see our sponsors. It's sponsored by Soft Illusions Art Gallery, Melba Wilson, her restaurant, Leon Ellis, Chocolat, Deli Arts and Survival Magazine, #1 martial arts magazine in this country right now, and Ingram Taxes. Oh, can't forget Reggie Wells, Quality Speakers. And we got a great show tonight. We have some powerful guests. I'm very excited about it. I got to thank my man Richard Williams for putting this panel together. That's Real Talk. That's what Real Talk is about. Trying to give you the best informative information we can. Positivity. That's what we are. So, Rich, how are you doing today, bro?
Oh man, you know my story. I woke up with the 2 C's, a choice and a chance, man.
That's good. That's good.
Rich, how are you doing today, bro?
That's an excellent thing. And we have a lovely panel. So, first, I'm going to ask Sharlene, how are you doing before I ask you to introduce yourself? How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Bill. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Milton, how are you doing today?
Doing just fine. Just fine. Honored to be on the panel.
Absolutely. And Vaughn, how are you doing, sir? You good?
I'm doing great, and it's great to be among you tonight.
Thank you. So without further ado, I will let you all three introduce yourselves and what you do and how long you've been doing it and where you're from. Start with Sharlene. Go ahead, please.
Good evening, gentlemen. So I'm from Boston. So you're going to hear a Boston accent. You're going to hear the hard R's and the way. But you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
So my name's Sharlene Blake. Currently, I work for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. My job description is a creditable messenger. I go into facilities, state prisons, and I help people that are currently detained navigate their release. I particularly work with people that are close to release, 120 days to 60 days, though we don't turn anyone away. I go into facilities and I sit with women that have natural life sentences, just to be give them the human touch and be able to sit and have a conversation with someone other than another inmate or officer there. So I do a lot of work in reentry. I have lived experience. I actually am married to a gentleman that's a lifer who's been home on supervised parole for 23 years. He's had a successful reentry, which has made me, experienced as a credible messenger with the lived experience. I have experience in substance use, disorders, mental health treatment. I have a bachelor's degree in juvenile justice, human services. I have a master's degree in mental health counseling. I'm currently enrolled in Vermont Law School for restorative justice. So I'm a lot in the arena of restorative justice, in reentry for people that are, coming back into society. And, I could go on and on, but that's basically where I'm at right now in my life and the field that I'm in and the field that I'm passionate about.
Well, I thank you for your service, as people used to say that to me and still do. But I thank you for your service, because a lot of times people like yourself and the other panelists are not appreciated and valued. So I thank you all for what you do. Milton Tingling, please tell your title, and I hope it's all right if I call you Milton, or I will call you your honor or your judge, whatever you prefer.
Well, as long as you call me, that's all I need.
Exactly.
All right. So I'm Judge Milton Tingling. I use all three names because I'm very proud. My family history, Adair is my mother's maiden name. I'm a retired New York State Supreme Court Justice. I'm a Harlem born and raised kid. I am now the County Clerk of New York, which better known as Manhattan, Big Apple. I am the first and only Black county clerk in the 235-year history of New York State, which comprised of 62 counties. I'm also the first Black commissioner of jurors in the history of New York State. I'm also the first Black and only clerk of Supreme Court in the history of New York State. I've been in the legal game, a lawyer for 41 years. And I am also the middle child of my father was a judge. I'm a retired judge. And now my oldest daughter is a judge. Wow. And we are the only 3-generation Black family of judges in the history of America. I spend my time working with my community because this is where I live.
Yes.
I do reentry work. Many years ago, I formed an organization called The Initiative, which at the time was registering formerly incarcerated to vote. Now that New York State allows formerly incarcerated to vote, even those with felony convictions, the only impediment to voting is if you are currently incarcerated pursuant to sentence. For those of you that have heard of Rikers, I have led contingents to Rikers to register people to vote because while they may be in jail, they are not there pursuant to sentence. I work with many organizations, Fortune Society, Clean Slate Coalition, and we're working on many legislative programs to restore rights for those that have been incarcerated, that have been taken away by law. Just like Sharlene, I mean, we could go on and on and on. But probably the most important thing that I have to say about myself is that I'm a friend of Richard Williams.
Yeah, that's a good friend. That's a good friend.
That's right.
Awesome. Awesome.
Vaughn?
Yeah. First of all, like I said, I'm really happy to hear about the work that Charlene's doing and you too, Judge Tingling. I mean, amazing work. And I've been involved in criminal justice for about 40 years. I'm born and raised in Harlem, and I started off in the first part of the 80s involved with the Vera Institute of Justice. And I was in the courts developing programs for the courts, community services, an alternative to jail, a number of different things. But I've always felt that jail is not the right sentence for everybody. I think that they need to look at that, and they're starting to do that now. I think the bail system was really messed up for years. I don't know if you noticed, but Judge Tingling is probably familiar with this. Back in the 60s, there was no such thing as being released on your own recognizance.
Right.
I mean,
That is correct.
The only people that got out of jail were people that got money. And if you don't have no money, $2 bail is a lot of bail. So it's nice to see that things are starting to change. I spent about 20 years working with the Fortune Society and also with cases dealing with parole issues. Right now, I was at Rikers for about 15 years at parole hearings and trying to get judges to basically get people back to programming as opposed to sending them back upstate. I was extremely successful in doing that. And as of recently, a new law was passed calling less was more, which means now parole can't lock people up for technical parole violations, which was really ridiculous to see how people on parole were getting locked up. Guy's never been in trouble, comes to the parole office, has a dirty urine, and they arrest him instead of just saying, go to an outpatient program or go get some help. And so I was real big at Rikers trying to get judges to do it. Been very successful. Been working out of home for the last 2 years, but I go into the office. I go into Manhattan Criminal Court, Brooklyn Criminal Court. I'm still dealing with hearings, but I'm a big fan of alternative and reentry stuff. So that's why just hearing you, Sharlene, and Judge Tingling talk about the work that you're doing, it really makes me feel good. And of course, Judge Tingling knows a lot about the Fortune Society, and we continue to get better and better and better.
Yes, you do.
One of the focuses that we're on now is housing. And I helped Fortune get the castle back in 1997 on 120 Riverside Drive because I was very connected to a lot of people in Harlem. It wasn't Congressman Rangel, it was Uncle Charlie. It wasn't Senator David Patterson, it was Cousin Dave. So I knew people that I could bring on board to make the community eventually accept the fact that people are going to come home. They come back to their same communities and they need an opportunity to get their lives back in order. Now I can say that Fortune has 5 other housing opportunities now. And I'm on the phone most of the day doing housing screenings to try to get people placed in housing because they're sending people to the shelter system, and the way they do it is appalling. A person maybe 6 months from getting out of state prison gives them 5 people that they could stay with, all reputable people. And they ask parole to basically do their diligence and go by to make sure it's an approved residence. The person gets released, reports to parole, says, what address did you approve for me? You know what they tell them?
Shelter.
Men's shelter, Bellevue Men's Shelter. Oh, God. And it puts them in a revolving door because they end up going to the shelter that night, and they're so horrible they can't stay, and they go by one of those 5 addresses that should have been approved, and guess what parole does? Lock them up. Violate them, you know. So I'm at the forefront of making sure things like this doesn't happen, and it's really a pleasure to be with all of you who are involved in, you know, trying to help people get their lives back in order.
Absolutely. Greg, I don't know if you could hear us. We were just going around and introducing everybody. And if you're comfortable with, or you positioned yourself, you can tell everybody your name, of course, is Greg, but tell them what you do and how long you've been doing.
And before he starts, he better say how long he knew me, okay?
Oh, there you go. That's it.
Before he says a word out of his mouth, he better tell the story about me and him.
Who, Vaughn Jackson?
Yes, it is, bro.
Who, Vaughn Jackson? I used to eat at your house when I couldn't eat at home. Gail and your mother, that was my second family.
That's right.
I'm talking kindergarten, first grade.
Kindergarten, first grade, yep.
Yep. So I'm Greg Joyner, and my program is Project Drive. It's a redirectional services organization. It's and you know, I've been kind of working with Julio Medina down in Exodus, you know, with the ex-offender thing. I'm getting on board with that, but I'm an ex-offender myself. So what I need to say about recidivism is I myself learned how to throw off the yoke of recidivism through my own personal experiences. And that was when I was incarcerated, I educated myself.
Okay.
You know, I sought to, I made time serve me. I didn't serve it, so to speak.
Right.
And what it taught me, I started a program back in 1977. It was called Black Studies in Correction, in Chicana Correctional Facility. And at that time, you know, we were dealing with recidivism. You know, it was right after the JIP program, which was implemented to help save it. You know, it was like it was the prelude to Scared Straight in New Jersey. You know, we started that in Greenhaven, and we were bringing the kids in and teaching, you know, and scaring them, you know, woofing at them and you know, just selling them tickets to try to scare the daylights out of them so that they would not want to be a part of that environment.
Yes.
So that's where my recidivism starts. But what it did for me was it kept me out of jail I wound up going back to jail in 2002 because of my street antics. But it kept me out of jail all that time. And the only reason that I wound up going back to jail is because even though I had expunged my felonies, I still, you know, that's Judge Tingling will tell you it ain't real. You know, you can get them expunged, but listen, law enforcement, the court system, they can see all that. And that's just like telling the jury, strike that from the record after they heard it. Right. The seed has already been planted. So whatever prejudices they're going to establish regarding you and your culpation, you know, you being culpable, you know, that you definitely committed the crime. That's how they see it, whether you did or didn't. So I just, you know, at that point I learned, you know, that I had to start doing things different, and I wound up getting trapped off. I worked a number of jobs, but when I lose those jobs for one reason or another, I would go back to the street. I was a drug dealer, and I knew how I always could get paid. Yeah. You know, if corporate America let me go, I went right back to criminal America. I said, yeah, I know I could get paid, and I had mastered. I'd honed my craft in the streets.
Yes.
So basically, and that's what sets you up for recidivism. First of all, the system knocks you out the box.
I know it's getting good to you, but hold on, Greg. I just want to make sure. I'm so glad because you segued right into the questions that we want to talk about. And I want to thank all of you here for definitely being a part of this, because the bottom line is we all know that because somebody does time doesn't make them a bad person. I've always told people in the past, Rich and I have conversed about this and talked about this. And my wife and I, we were just talking to an individual today that did time, and we were talking about some people. Unless I see them here, and I'll mention their name if they pop on. When I say pop on, I'm talking about in the live chats that they were upstate with them, in Fed time, and a lot of people can come home and still be law-abiding citizens. But this is my question to you all, and Rich, you can chime in when you want to. Just because, well, my main question is, because somebody does something, do you think when they come home that the avenues that you all are doing are not allotted to them, where they can still come back and be law-abiding citizens again? Because a lot of times, just like Greg was alluding to, people get caught up. And when they feel like corporate America doesn't want you, the door closes in your face. Boom, I can't get a job. Now, all of a sudden, like Greg just said, I'm going to go back to the street and get what I got to get. So do you think this, and I'll start with you, Judge, because you know the thing, just like I was former law enforcement, and I know the things that were never fair to a lot of people of color. They definitely weren't to a lot of people of color. But do you think the system has been rigged to keep people of color, and when I say color, of course, people, I speak about our Latin community family too, against getting back into the system? I mean, back into the work society, sir.
All right, so I need everybody that's listening to understand my answer. My answer is, you're damn right it's rigged. Listen, all of this is historical from the beginning and the end of slavery. And it has permeated and infused itself not just in the criminal justice system, which probably is an oxymoron, criminal justice. Okay, but it has permeated and inculcated itself into every aspect of minority communities, especially Black communities. I'll give you an example. And I need to give a shout out to the Harlem State Senator Cordell Clear, who introduced a bill to address this simple issue. When people are released from state incarceration, they would be released with no identification. In other words, they not even have a non-driver's ID, which is issued by the state of New York.
Right.
Imagine coming back to your community and you can't get a copy of your birth certificate. You can't get a driver's license. You can't even prove who you are. I've dealt with so many people coming home that are walking around with their rap sheet to attempt to prove who they are. Something that simple. So when you think about that, and then you ask the question, is the system rigged? Greg can tell you, I'm sure everyone on this panel can tell you, you move on to so many other things. You go to get a job. You need your Social Security card. There are certain preliminary hurdles that you have to face, and certain preliminary requirements you have just to go and apply for a job. And we're not even talking about the difficulties and impediments that you will face just trying to do the right thing. So is the system rigged? Absolutely, absolutely, yes.
Right. Thank you. Sharlene, I'll come to you, and then Rich, and then Vaughn. And Sharlene, I commend you for what you're saying. The fact that you didn't let somebody's past stop you from loving them and work and did your due diligence to help them become a better person. So I salute you on that too. So go ahead, Sharlene, please.
Thank you. Yeah, so I knew when I met my husband that incarceration didn't determine who he was, as a person, as a man, and by God's grace, he came out and he was who he said he was, and his walk was his talk, And that's not always the case, because I think we beat a lot of odds with the couples that were there when we were there, probably not haven't still, stayed married. We've been married 33 years this June. A lot has been said before me, and the position I'm in now with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, being a credible messenger, has allowed me to go behind the wall and sort of be that gap between the system and the person that's detained. The work that's not getting done by the department programs officer, which is called a CPO here in Massachusetts, I'm the barrier between that. I go in the facility and I conversate with them. We communicate what's being done, what's not being done. And I really appreciate the what Massachusetts is trying to do with reentry, putting these credible lived experienced people behind the wall to build trust and rapport, hopefully enough that the person will engage, right? Because a lot of the times the underground issues are personal decisions and the way you're living, and the underlying issue, from my experience with people I've sat with, from juvenile to a 74-year-old woman I just met in her release yesterday, has been trauma. So if the trauma is not being dealt with either before the incarceration, during the incarceration, then when they come out, they're still living the traumatic experiences, and there's been no intervention on the inside. There's no mental health services on the inside in Massachusetts. There's no clinicians going to the cells and to the lockup when people are being detained and not being, they're being punished and not being treated. I come from that clinical aspect also.
Awesome.
And in Boston, something was said about IDs. So something that we're doing now in Massachusetts is, because when people leave incarceration here, they have no identification, or the department decides 30 days prior to their release that they're going to start the process. And so many have left with no identification. Whereas now there's an initiative where we're going in, we're starting the process. And I think the Department of Corrections and the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security that I work for are now sort of in agreement on some new procedures of how people can get them made while they're detained, and when they're released, go to the registry of motor vehicle and pick up their identification. So that's something that's on the table right now here in Massachusetts. But it's always been the mindset of the white man, the old white man that's still in these positions, that have that mindset, that deep embedded, bias, preconceived ideas, and everything else everyone's talking about, yes, this is definitely a setup by the system.
Right.
One thing I also want to say is I've done some research on the Credible Messenger program in New York and in DC, and I think California, focus on juveniles, which is great, because I think those services should be directed towards juvenile if we want to start breaking the cycles of pipeline to prison, school pipeline to prison, right? Because our juveniles are going to prison, right? And some of that is because of mass incarceration. Their fathers are detained, been locked up for years. They're acting out in school. Who are they going to tell that the father's been in lockup for 30 days? Not the school counselor. They're going to act out in school. They're going to be perceived as, the troubled child that, and get suspended or whatever, and led, to behaviors, again, that lead to the pipeline to prison, right? And so,
yes.
So some of this is, so I don't, I'm not, some of this is the system, but I also want to say that some of this is personal decisions that we make, because my husband did 18 years. He came to Boston on a 2-week vacation, and it was at the wrong place at the wrong time. I'm not saying he wasn't living a lifestyle that led him to be where he was at, right? But he got involved in a case that he wasn't the shooter. He was there. And he told me when it was over, he's standing and saying, holding 2 6-packs, saying, what the hell just happened? And a life was taken. His bus was stopped. He was sentenced on his 21st birthday. The judge told him, I hate to do this to you, but this is the law in Massachusetts. He got a sentence of life with a chance of parole at 18. I met him at his 10th year mark, and I truly believe, because of the interaction that, we met, he had support. When he came home, he had a place to go. He didn't have to worry about a car. He didn't have to worry about phone, a place to go, any of that. He had all of that, right? But people don't have all that. What do? Right? But he had all that in place. Right. And he was at a minimum, and down the hill, they were breaking ground for a security maximum prison. And as we watched from the minimum, he said, I'm not going back. When I get out of here, I ain't going back. That was his determination. He watched them build that maximum. So it was he took that home with him. So he watched the people he was around. He watched the places he went. He used coping skills opposed to going out and reoffending. Like he could have did all that.
Right.
Remind you, he's still on parole. Parole officer leaves my house the first of every month with stipulations. I'm talking. My husband's a 62-year-old man, has to get 30-day prior permission to go to Savannah to see his elderly mother. Right. This is a system that still has the plastic handcuffs on him. Right. Still has the floor on his neck, but he has not decided to reoffend. He should be very freaking angry right now. So I'm saying all that to say, right, that we got to look at ourselves in some of the suing decisions we make.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
The consequences are going to be. It's going to be me, my family, my kid, my community.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Rich, go ahead, brother. I know you want to chime in. Of course, put your input in.
What I want to do at this point is I want to yield my time to Vaughn, and I'm going to come in behind Vaughn.
Okay. Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say that I'm in a real agreement with Judge Tingling said about it being rigged. And then I want to commend Sharlene for what's happening up there in Boston. They know if people come out of jail doing state time and they can't have a driver's license or a social security card, what the heck they gonna do when they get out? They know that. So why aren't systems in place in New York where they allow people from certain agencies to come in and start processing people before they get out? And so that's a problem. Now, the Fortune Society, we're in the prisons. So we're actually doing work, talking to people who are getting released, telling them to please come to us. And if you come to us, we will assist you with that. And believe me, we bend over backwards in getting people. When they come out to us, they're going to have a place to sleep. They're going to have food for the house. They're going to have everything they need to help get them back. And 60% of our staff are formerly incarcerated people. So
that's correct.
They sit down and they talk to people who understand their plight. And so it's definitely rigged to an extent, but we're doing as much as we can to try to educate people. But you are right when you say it comes to personal decisions sometimes, because I used to break my back at Rikers trying to tell people the opportunities that were available to them and just go and make yourself available. And I promise you, you will be 100% successful. And they're getting released from parole and don't go. And I'm like, are you serious? And then I'm in my office, they say, Vaughn, we got somebody in the pens that want to talk to you. Who is it? So-and-so, who I got revoked and restored to go to Fortune that never went. And I'm like, I'm not talking to him right now, because the bottom line is I spent a half an hour, 45 minutes saying, just give it a chance. So it does come to personal decisions, but the system itself needs to be able to address the fact that people are going to come home and they need help in a number of different areas. And as I often said, that when a person is incarcerated, you have to look at a holistic approach to getting them back into society. It's not just about a drug problem. It's not just about needing unemployment. It's about everything at once that's happening to them. And you've got to be able to have those critical messengers, right, who can sit down and understand them and help them plan a way to get back into society.
Very well said. Bill, I'm sorry to jump in. I just wanted to be clear that was an issue in New York State, but I shouted out Senator Cordell Clear. She introduced a bill that was passed in the New York State Senate, and now people being released from state incarceration, it is now law that they have to be issued non-driver's IDs.
Thank you. It's so funny that you said that, because I had a friend. I still have him as my friend. I shouldn't say that. A friend of mine one time reached out to me and asked me about that because he was trying to do a business deal.
Oh, man.
In essence of trying to make a movie about his life, and he didn't know where to turn. And it was above my pay grade. And I reached out to some law enforcement people that I was like, well, what does he do? And it was like, go down to this place and go down to that thing. And it's a shame. Shout out to my man, my brother, my namesake, Will, in the building. He said, straight answer, true facts, Judge. Many come home working from the basement trying to climb up with nothing but a state ID and $40.
There you go.
Yeah.
There it is.
So I'm Rich. Come on, brother, whatever you want to say, man, because then you can ask the next question.
I mean, it's so much stuff out and things out there that I want to say, man, questions I want to ask. And I'm gonna start out with and you know, nobody has to answer this particularly, but you know, I remember like when Greg came on, Greg was talking about how he had gotten his degree in prison. Now, I don't know if that program still exists in prison, where if you didn't have your high school diploma or you wanted to pursue a higher education, is that still in place? And if it is, I haven't heard about it. So I wanted to answer to that. And this one question is more directed towards bail reform, because there's a lot of misconceptions out there to the public, and there's a spin been given as far as law enforcement about bail reform being the reason why crimes are committed all over again. A guy commits a crime, he gets arrested, and then he's let go. And I hear police officers always talking about, oh, we caught a guy with a gun, or a guy shot somebody, he went to court, and the judge just let him go. And now the guy is still on the street. And then the public is hearing that, and their understanding of it is just that this guy or whoever committed a violent crime, and they may have made the call, hey, this guy did whatever, and now they're worried to the degree they can't even report crimes in their community, you know, because they're going to be labeled a snitch, and the person that actually committed the crime is now walking around them, you know, and that's one of the concerns in the public. So I really want to get to the truth about that. And Vaughn, this one is more directed towards Vaughn, because Vaughn deals with the Fortune Society. Hold on, a lot of guys.
Hold on, Rich. You asked 3 questions. You about to ask 3 questions. So ask them their first question. Ask them your first question, and then we'll go to your second question. The first question, if you remember what you had down.
Well, that was the one about the education being in the justice system, where if you're incarcerated, can you pursue a higher education? Because is it about punishment, or is it about reform?
Okay, hold on. Anybody want to tackle that question first? Vaughn, Judge, or Sharlene?
I think Judge Tingling might have some information on it. I know that back in the day that they did have a way to pursue education, because a guy who was like my big brother, Eddie Ellis, was very, very responsible for starting programs in Greenhaven and other places to help people get their GED and then further their education. I got Eddie out of jail in '92 to come work for me at the Naval Defender Service of Harlem. So he came straight from Greenhaven to work for me. But I was under the impression that that part stopped in state correction, that they no longer do that. Judge Tingling, would you know anything about that?
Okay, so I'm speaking about New York State only.
Right.
In 1993, when George Pataki was elected as governor of New York State, he shut down.
That's right.
They discontinued all of those education programs. People need to understand there were brothers and sisters going to jail who, while in jail, not only got their GEDs, they got their college degrees, they got their masters.
Right.
Okay? Eddie Ellis, for those of you that don't know, is literally the godfather of rehabilitation from the inside out, because his program was set up to have those that were being sent in to accept the responsibility for their actions. And this is what this panel was talking about. This is what Sharlene was talking about. Not making excuses for your actions, but accepting them and moving forward. So to go to Richard's question, the programs would shut down. In New York State, if you were lucky enough to be at Ossining Correctional Institution, there is a organization in New York Theological Seminary, that over the years was able to run not only a college graduate program, but a master's program if you were lucky enough to be at Ossining. It was the only correctional facility where this was being done. So it's all over the place. It is not back to the extent that it was before 1993. There are opportunities, but they are few and far in between. It is not consistent, and it is not mandatory in the state of New York.
Awesome. Sharlene, I want to ask you the question. Do you know anything about this in Boston, about the education? And then we'll go to the next question.
Yeah, I know back in 1990s, when my husband was incarcerated, he was able to get a associate's degree behind the wall.
Right.
So now, part of the office that I'm working with is the School of Reentry. So they go out and they interview guys to come into this program. And I just went to an event last week. They just got budgeted by the state for $5.1 million to maintain learning opportunities through tablets. So they have tablets dispersed in all the state prisons. And on the tablets is not a lot, but from what I understand, there's a lot of reading, there's music, there's things of that sort. But still, like when I sit with the natural lifers, they're like, there's nothing on the tablet that's really teaching me anything. So they're using that as saying that's a source of education, but really they're not getting anything out of it educational where they're going to earn a degree, you know?
Got you.
But they do have a school of reentry where they do have a lot of that are accepted. They do get degrees in this school. They spend 30 to 40 hours a week in classrooms. It's in a minimum status detainment type of arena. And so there they are earning degrees.
Okay. Loving God, I see your question. I'm gonna read it to the panel. I don't want you to answer it now because I have another question and I want Rich to finish his questions. So I'll save that for the later. It's basically he's asking can all the speakers mention the resources that are available, how to contact them? We'll do that at the end of the show. We'll go back to that. But I need to ask the judge this question, and then Richard will go to your question. Everybody, first and foremost, this is Real Talk Chronicles. That's Richard Williams. That's Sharlene. That's Milton Tingling. That's Vaughn Jackson. Sharlene, what's your last name? It's not on the screen.
It's Blake.
What is it? Blake. Sharlene Blake. And of course, that's my co-host, Richard Williams. This is Real Talk Chronicles. If you like it, subscribe to it. Please share it. This is information. This is where you're getting it at. This is Real Talk. Judge, can you answer maybe this? Why are so many different states different in giving education and the changing of laws? It's not like worldwide. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe New York is different than Massachusetts, or maybe Chicago, Pennsylvania. Is there something that you could answer to that?
Yes. It goes back to the founding of this country and the Constitution. Okay? When you read the U.S. Constitution, all rights not given to the federal government are reserved to the states.
Got you.
And so each individual state, we see it now, not only in incarceration, not only in reentry programs. You know, this panel alone has talked about different states, but we see it in voting. We see it in elections. We see it in immigration. We see it in housing. We see it in all sorts of things. Let me tell you this. All of us are probably familiar with, and we accept it as fact, speedy trial laws.
Right.
Okay, so I'm here to tell you as a fact, because while I told you that I am a member of the only 3-generation family of Black judges in the history of America, my oldest son, that doesn't mean anything because it comes down to individual choices. My oldest son is a 2-time felony offender.
Yes.
And I had to walk through that. But in the state of North Carolina, where he was incarcerated again, not convicted, they have no speedy trial statute. Think about that.
Wow.
But it goes back to the Constitution. And when it comes to state crimes, there's only one rule. And that rule is each state is its own entity.
Yes.
Yeah.
And to show you how bad that is, you got a guy, I knew a kid that went down to Virginia and got caught up into something. And if they offered him a deal, you know what his deal was? 25 years. That was the deal. And if he blew trial, you know what he was looking at? 45 years.
Yep.
Unheard of.
If he was in New York, he would have never seen that kind of stuff pointed at him. But it's because, as Judge Tingling said, states have the ability to enact their own things. In parts of Pennsylvania, they changed things down there. Why? Because people were flying into those areas, you know, dropping off drugs and doing stuff. So they said, we got to find a way to kind of make them know if they come this way, we're going to serve them. So the states have the ability to set up their own types of sentencing guidelines, and that's just the way it is.
Absolutely.
And I know everybody from New York in this panel will recall the Rockefeller drug laws.
Absolutely.
Okay, so.
Yes, sir.
Rich, go ahead. What's your next question? Go ahead, brother.
The bail reform in New York City is a lot of people are confused about the facts regarding bail reform, you know, because the police department is saying that, they don't want to make arrests, because if they arrest a person, they're going to just be out on bail, you know, rather with no bail. And it's affecting the public at large because they're under the misconception, and correct me if I'm wrong, that a person could actually shoot and kill somebody, get arrested, go downtown, and get released the same night. So you got people that are saying, you know, why even bother to try to protect your community by making a call about somebody committing crimes or testifying in cases where somebody was killed or robbed, because they just arrested a guy. He's walking around, you know, and looking at me. So I'm afraid to go to court or make a call. And I'm a civilian. I'm not part of the street. So what do I do? Because bail reform sucks, you know. But then on the flip side of that, you know, you got people that get arrested and they're innocent until proven guilty. And like scenarios, I got a job and somebody just arrested me about, you know, some mess I didn't even do, but they want this crazy bail and I don't have the money for that. So I'm going to get locked up, sit in jail, got a job that I'm going to lose because I don't have bail money. So can you just say to the public, and I'm asking this to the judge, what's the fact, what's the truth about bail reform?
Well, actually, I think you answered your own question, Richard. I think you answered your own question, because why did bail reform come along? It was because of the abuse of bail prior to bail reform. It's what you just said. I can't tell you what I initially started sitting in criminal court before I moved on to Supreme.
Right.
I can't tell you how many kids, when I say kids, 21 to 25, out doing the right thing, nothing, got caught up in a situation. Sharlene, what did you say? Wrong place, wrong time?
Right.
Got caught up in a situation. And then next thing you know, you're in front of a you're in front of a judge at arraignment. That judge sets bail. You can't make bail. And then the case is adjourned for a month. What happened to your job?
Yeah.
They're not waiting. They're not holding your job for a month. And then what happens? You lose your job. You can't pay your rent. You're married. You got a young child. Now you got problems at home. Now you're fighting your landlord. It trickles down into all these things. So to answer your question about bail reform, there's an old saying, there's lies, damn lies, and statistics.
Right, right.
And the statistics do not bear out that bail reform is the reason that you see the cherry-picked newspaper articles and cases of people that maybe should not be back out on the streets. Nobody's getting arrested for murder and is back out on the street.
Right. Wow.
Okay, that's a bunch of crap.
That's
the
good.
number. Yeah. I'm sorry, I'll turn it over. But
Judge, what I was saying, that's good to know, because a lot of times the news and the media has definitely shown us what Rich and I have said. Rich and I, on every Wednesday, we've had conversations with other law enforcement that we have on the show, and that their narrative is that bail reform is not working. Trust me. Do I feel a person that maybe had a DWI and hit something, a city property, and he doesn't have the money for bail, should he stay in there for a whole year? Absolutely not. But to see the narrative is, some people think that the murderer that just robbed the old lady and pushed her on the tracks, he's getting out just the same day too. So I'm glad you clarified that. Everybody, this is real talk. That was a real talk moment. You heard it from the judge. So I'm glad you put some clarity to that, Judge. I really did. So now we can always say Judge Milton Tingling said, and that's it. How about that? I'll put a period behind it for you.
Okay.
Sharlene, I want to ask you a question. And then, Rich, I know you have a question, but since I'm going to ask Sharlene, and then I'll go to Vaughn, and then, Judge, you can chime in a few. Sharlene, what do you think needs to be done to keep our people out of jail when they come home? You know what I'm saying? We got you guys for as long as you want to stay, but I know we said a strong hour. So, condense it as much as you can. But what do you think needs to be done for our people to come home? And like, what do are their jobs supposed to be lined up for them? And, and don't get me wrong. A lot of people I know from the street that's made a lot of money, I've had them tell me, yo, I'm not coming home. I'm not working at McDonald's. I'm not mopping floors. I'm not doing this. I get it, but I don't get it. But I totally understand it. You was that dude, and the last thing you want to see to come back to your community and feel like you want to mop a floor in a restaurant. It's to each his own. But I just wanted to ask your input, Sharlene, and then I'll go to you, Vaughn, and then Judge, and then Rich, you can chime in whenever you're ready.
I would say first support, being able to have people to guide you to or know where to find the resources for like housing, for example. I know here in Boston, we have an organization called Justice for Housing. That's because a lot of people that come home having issues with finding a place to live or returning to a family member's home. Maybe the crime happened, or maybe where the victim might be living in that area. And so their Section 8 certificate doesn't allow them to take them in, and so there's a lot of issues with housing. So I think the answer to your question is resources. First of all, people with lived experience that can help guide them to these resources. And I say with lived experience because those are the people that they're going to build a trust and rapport and want to engage and actually go and do some work for themselves. Like you have to find people that are going to motivate you, to support you. I had a guy that just after 6 years, he said no one had ever believed in him until I came along. And now he wanted to go. He was able to parole and wrap up, and he wanted to go to treatment. He wanted a 6-month long-term treatment. He didn't have to go, but I was able to be an influence on him, and just sort of pour the picture out of his life in front of him and saying, this might be an avenue that might help you make some different choices. So the guidance is big, the support, the resources for them to actually find and engage in. And there's a lot of ex-offenders that come out in Massachusetts that have started a lot of nonprofit organizations to help with people returning to society, specifically, to help them find work, find support, mental health men groups. They got a group here called the Yard Time. They meet every Monday. Guys that come out, they refer to that. So I'm saying the resources, the guidance, the support,
Thank you.
Is very important.
Thank you, Sharlene. Vaughn?
Well, that's one of the reasons why I got involved with Fortune, because I was helping people get out of jail back in the 80s. And my concern was, what were they going to do once they got out? Right. So, and there's so many issues involved because there's so many things that needs to happen for them. So when I connected with Fortune, I was so impressed because, as I mentioned before, they were taking a holistic approach, meaning this person needs a lot of assistance right now. And that's what we were trying to provide them. Because housing was such a big issue, we continually tried to find more housing for people, especially we're working with now people who have mental health issues because they get kicked to the corner, and a bunch of things happen. And then the media makes it look like these are the biggest people out there committing crazy crime. And they're not. Like Judge Tingling said earlier, that when you look at statistics of things, the real answer is right there, but they will blow things out of proportion to keep people basically locked in their own despair. So, I traveled, do a lot of presentations. I was at an Edgecombe facility a couple of weeks ago doing a presentation with about 25 guys. And I was telling them, take the step to try to, move toward this kind of support that can help you. And it was amazing. One young man came over to me and said, Mr. Jackson, I just did 22 years in prison. I said, well, listen, I said, you got to give me a call and let me help you with this housing stuff. And when he finally called me and I was doing the housing screening on him, I said, you know what you have to do, Mr. People? I said, you got to go to Fortune. He said, Mr. Jackson, I already went to Fortune. I'm already in the program doing this. And I almost cried. I said, are you for real? So when I sent this housing screening off to the people at Fortune, I sent it along with a long message about where I met him at, what he talked to me about. And as I was encouraging him to come there to get the other services, he's already been there. And right now, he has housing with us. And we're at the point now we're trying to get him some skilled type training to go into employment. But it's about having support and letting people know that there's support there to help them. And that's what we're trying to do, inside the prisons and once they come home. I'm doing screenings for people who are in state prison right now, and they're getting close to coming out. But I want them to be able to talk to me so that we can get some things set up so that when they get out, they don't get sidelined and have to be in a shelter, because then things just go backwards. But if they can get into some, we take for granted what it is to put your head on the pillow and get a good night's sleep. without having somebody come at you and steal and stuff like this. But it's little things like this that they're worried about, that we're in tune to trying to help them. But it's about the support that needs to be set up. And we're trying to do everything we can. But as Sharlene said earlier, the person too has a responsibility to take the step to do stuff. And I often tell them that back in the day, I lost my job, right? And I knew some powerful people in Harlem, and they were trying to tell me some stuff. And had I leaned to the left, I'd have got 15 to life, because I was dealing with some people that was getting some real money. This little stuff they're getting out there in the street now ain't nothing. I'm talking about people that were, their salary was $5 million a year in the 70s. And they were coming to me saying, Vaughn, if you need some money, man. And I said, that's a death game. And I was fortunate enough to walk away from that, but then to devote my time toward recognizing people having problems, sitting there and crying with them sometimes, saying, please, let us try to help you, and give them the support they need.
Thank you. Judge, you want to chime in real quick before I read some comments and stuff like that?
I'll go to it. I really just want to say this, and I love the fact that this is real talk. Yo, it's not going to be easy.
Right.
It's not going to be easy. Anybody looking thinking it's going to be easy and things going to fall into place, you're already on your way back.
Right.
Okay. You talked about, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. You cannot have that mentality. Absolutely. I got a lot of rules, and one of my rules is, hardest thing in life is making decisions. You either right or you're wrong. Yeah. Ain't no in between. Yeah. Okay. So you have to make the decision. I love what Sharlene said. Family support. If you have a family structure or a support structure, that is like the golden ticket. But what I found is that many times, even when those coming home have that support system, they don't appreciate it and they don't support it. And then they keep even destroying that support system because they will not do their part in making that work. It may be a minimum wage job, but you're bringing something into the household.
Absolutely.
Food, shelter, clothing. And I'm going to leave it here, but Vaughn will tell you, because I have worked with people at the castle, tried to register them to vote. These are people who've done 30, 40 years. The only thing they care about is having a roof over their head and a meal 3 times a day.
And the castle is right around the corner from you on 140th Street. Absolutely. So I know exactly what you're talking about. So, Rich, I know you got another question, but I just want to read some comments. Everybody, this is Real Talk Chronicles. We have Sharlene Blake. We got Judge Milton Tingling. We got Vaughn Jackson. Of course, my co-host, Richard Williams. This is Real Talk Chronicles. If you like it, subscribe to it, share it. This is the only place you're going to hear it. You're not hearing this anything else. So, Loving God has some first. Brenda McLaughlin, she said, good news, everybody. My man, William Roberts, my namesake, he said, this was a great show. Very informative. Thank you, guys. Also, Barry said, yo, big up to all of you. Great show. Loving God, he made a couple of statements, and I'll read some of them. Okay. He said, what we really need is the good guys with style to show crime is whack. Okay. Crime is usually the result of lack of leadership in the communities it takes place at. I'll ask you your opinions on that. I'll start with you, Vaughn, Judge, and then Sharlene. You agree with that? Crime is usually the result of lack of leadership in the communities it takes place at.
It might be to that. It might be true to some degree,
Okay.
And that's because that, when people get involved in it, they get involved in their community, and when they come home, they come back to their community. So right. It ends up being a revolving door if the right support system is there, or they don't get the fact that crime doesn't pay. You're going to end up, when we think about the drug trade back in the day, people got away with stuff for a minute, but guess what? They locked that down. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
All the stores that were selling the gaiters and the silk suits and stuff like that, they went out of business. And I got there when they were getting rid of clothes and got me some real nice stuff, because guess what? There wasn't no hustlers coming in there buying all of the clothes up no more. But the bottom line is things have changed, and they have to realize that the system is there to hurt them, and they have to make decisions. Like Judge Tingling, it's about making decisions, and that lies with them, and not being satisfied with a couple of things. Like he mentioned, being satisfied with having a roof over your head is something. It's bigger than that. You have to get involved in other things to make things turn around.
Yes,
absolutely. Judge, you want to comment? And Sharlene? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna give it over to Sharlene, but I think that everything that has been said is seriously real talk. But I think we need to start getting to, as Sharlene said, we need to start getting to the younger kids before they make those first bad decisions. Right. And I know because you know I'm gonna have to admit it, but I worked with Greg Joyner. Right. He and I've been working together for years, and his focus is on the kids to get them to not make those initial decisions. Because when you make them, now you got to make a whole bunch of decisions. You go in, you come out, you got to start at the beginning. And like you said, listen, when you've been making a whole lot of cheese, it's hard to go back, right, to making crumbs.
Yes, absolutely. Let me just piggyback off what you're saying, and we'll turn it over to Sharlene. I go around and I'm in the tri-state area, and I go to schools and I speak to the youth. The bottom line is I try to tell them, listen, the role models that you follow are not the people that are right here next to you that'll take care of you. You're emulating the athletes and the rappers. And I always tease them. I say, yo, these rappers, and no disrespect to the rappers, anybody, athletes, whomever you emulate or idolize, their kids are not in these schools with you that I'm conversing with you and talking to you. So the bottom line is stop believing the hype. You know, a rapper could come back in the hood and stand on the corner and smoke a blunt, but he going back to Jersey or Connecticut or wherever he lives. And his kid is going to an Ivy League school or a private school with a bunch of other little white kids. And then here you want to emulate that thug life or that drip music or whatever that is. It's a negative overtone, and we got to shake that aspect. Sharlene, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm thinking, you know, just as a society, Black culture, we've been traumatized from mass incarceration to grandparents raising children, those people that are detained. We had what, a big crack epidemic that went on. It took us out, right? Yeah. And so the absence of the fathers and the mothers in the home has played a part in the children in the people they've decided to follow, because there's been no real leaders. Yes, I think we need leaders in community. That's why I think it's important that we start with the young kids. We get to them before they start to even embark on a life of crime, or if it even looks like they're going that way. We need mentorship programs. We need Black men to come back into our communities, come out of prison, step back into your family, and take leadership. You know, I sit with young boys. There's a Brave unit here in Boston, the Concord State Prison. It's a Brave unit. It's for young guys from 18 to 26. They're all fathers. They're all gangbangers, gang members, you know, and they're earning degrees, and they have mentors, lifers in that unit that are sort of mentoring them into manhood. And so when they leave that unit, when they go back to society, they got some type of foundation to stand on, right? So it is important for the youth.
Just to dovetail on that school issue, back in the early 90s, both Eddie and I taught a class in A. Philip Randolph School called Conflict with Cops. And it was designed to teach young people on how to avoid confrontations with police. Absolutely. And we came in there with attorneys, Eddie on us, we had different kind of role plays, how you would deal with a different situation. And it was done to teach them about why police do what they do, but more importantly, how you need to protect yourself when it comes to that. You know, detectives would drive around in Harlem, Judge King will tell you, back in the 80s and 90s, and ask young people, do they want to be in a lineup? And they give them $50.
I know that for a fact, because I was a detective and I was a police officer in the 90s. I started my career in the 2-8. So I understand, and I never was a part of that, but I know exactly. I'm saying everything to say that I'm saying you're telling the truth. That's my point. Yes.
So we were trying to teach young people how to avoid that. It needs to happen with them. And that's why I applaud a lot of programs that focus on working with young people, getting them to see the need to get involved in trades, get involved in other things other than being influenced by what they see on TV with rappers and people running around with diamond earrings and stuff like this. That's not the real world. That's entertainment.
No, and let me tell you something. You passed the baton because I picked it up too, along with other brothers that we do. We go out and, like I said, we speak. And I'm extending this olive branch to all three of you. Rich already knows this too. If anything I can ever be of service to any three of you, please let me know. I'm gonna read some more comments by Loving God, and some might be something you might want to answer or not. We could just pass. He says crime is usually I read that. He said people who know the crime culprits allow it instead of showing the perpetrators, legitimate alternative. I don't know if Rich, you want to comment on that real quick, or we can keep pushing.
Can you read that again?
He said people who know the crime culprits allow it instead of showing the perpetrators a legitimate alternative.
I don't want to mess with that. I don't even know what he means by that.
Exactly. I just wanted to read it because, you know, everybody, and excuse me, panel, if you see me looking to the left and the right and everything, I'm just looking at all my outlets where people are writing and chiming in, and I'm trying to catch them from all angles. And I always try to give them some.
But what I do want to address, right?
Go ahead,
is,
Rich.
My background is working with youth. I worked in Department of Education for 35 years, in which I retired from as a dean. I worked in foster care with Salvation Army, social services for children, for hard to place children, kids that no other group home wanted. And I also worked at Job Corps, South Bronx Job Corps. Now, I'm saying that to say this. Most of the kids that I worked with came from homes where they couldn't go back to, right? For one reason or another. And in the group home, we worked in a program we had called independent living, where once you became 18 and you were 2 years short of aging out of the program, independent living was a program where you went in and you got counseled on how to maintain your own place. So you would attend these programs, these sessions, and every time you went, there was money put in the bank account for you. So by the time you aged out of the program, there was money there for you to then go and seek out your own residence. So the counseling was about getting all these things in place for you to maintain this facility or this apartment that you segued into. And when it comes to incarceration, I'm wondering, is there any kind of program that's in place for a person that's about to be released? And are they helping them with the identification piece, with the housing piece, with whatever services he may need to be connected to once released? Because and I'm listening to all of this, and it's like, it's just one big trap just to send you back. And I never forget, I was watching the Bruce Willis movie, and the villain in the movie, he asked the villain, why do you keep doing this? He said, because there's money in chaos.
Yes.
Now, when a person gets arrested, all the hands that touch that one individual from the point he gets arrested, goes to the precinct, then gets sent down to central booking, and then they fingerprint him down there, find a place for him to stay, the transport of him going back and forth to court, all of the clerks, everybody that's involved with that one arrest is getting paid. And then you go, if you're unfortunate enough to get a sentence, then you go to one of these small towns upstate where the prison is named after the town, where it's nothing but white folks in the town, and they're actually living off the prison. And you become a part of their census. I mean, it's just that chaos is just all around us, and we're the victims of it.
Yeah, I think you definitely made a good point and made a statement, and we don't, we're all trying to find an answer. The one thing I want to say, two things, and then I'm gonna read another comment or question. First and foremost, I want all of you to come back one day by yourselves, because you have so much knowledge and history. You need the time to talk and tell people your stories individually. The beautiful thing about it is you all came today. But once you're on Real Talk, you're always welcome back. I'm just giving you a heads up. It is that hour time. So if any of you have to leave, I understand. If you don't, we will stay a few more minutes. But I just want to keep you all in I want you to always come back. I don't want you mad, and leave and then say, oh, he said an hour, and then now we still talking. So if you have to go, I respect it. Rich will set up a schedule for each and one of you.
Bill only saying that because he want to watch the Knicks.
No, I want to say something.
I'm gonna watch them anyway, but I don't. I'm definitely. But I just want to make sure that I want to respect people's time and stuff like that, because this is a beautiful thing that you're giving back. People don't understand. You're giving back to the communities. You don't have to be here. You want to be here. because you all are activists and motivational people in your own right. So the bottom line is, this is what we're trying to do, to give back. They like.
Hey, Bill, I gotta say this before we go any further. I gotta give out full disclosure. Sharlene Blake is my sister.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Awesome.
All right.
yeah. And Bill, I just want to comment on what Dickie said.
Sure.
Because I'm really big on people who come out. They have so much need, and what we started to do is we have incentives for them when they complete certain parts of programming.
Right. Good.
We have cash incentives. If you complete your anger management or something, you get X amount. So, and you don't have to worry about car fare. We give you Metro cards to get you wherever you don't have to worry about eating. We give you breakfast, lunch, and dinner to take home or whatever.
Wow.
So there's a bunch of things that we're doing to try to make sure that people, are all right, for that day, for that week, or whatever is needed. But the stipends that they give for completing certain parts of the program were amazing. In fact, we had found some money where that if a person completed, once he got involved in the program, if he completed 1 month, he got $1,100. And if he completed the next month or whatever, he got $2,200 in total cash money for completing a part of the training that he was in. So we were able to find funds to do that, because people need money when they come out too. If they don't have the skills and stuff like this, what are they doing? They go home, and every time they open that refrigerator, somebody says, "You going back in there again?"
Yeah, right. Hey, Vaughn, let me ask you this question. I think this question is directed to you. My man Mark says, Bill, amazing panel. Could you ask the brother if David Rothenberg still works with the society? The attorney I worked for did some pro bono work for them back in the days. Education trades were fought for the brothers and sisters who were in prison. Those people did good work. So you just said yes.
David is still there. He's on our board. I see David all the time, and he's still so involved with people and still in contact with people that he helped get out of prison 30, 40 years ago. So yes, David Rothenberg is still involved with Fortune.
Michelle has a comment. She says, we have to get back to where it takes a village. I raised my last son as a single parent. It was so challenging to teach him about the streets and keep a firm hand on him. Once he was of age, he did stray away and was incarcerated for a moment. Because of COVID, he didn't serve time, but it caught up for him. It caught up to him. Fast forward, he did time, and now he has a legit job, and now is a manager at a store. Awesome. Brenda says, I hear you talk about the men and these services available to the women. So we're going to come to Sharlene for that. Loving God said, Rich, you would be a great candidate for office if you in your district. He also says, and this is to the panel, this is I guess, do you agree or disagree? And I'll start with you, Judge, and then Vaughn and Sharlene. He says, all the people on this panel will make a great impact if meeting with church clergy. Do you agree with that, Judge, Vaughn, and then Sharlene and Rich?
Listen, one thing I feel about this panel, we will go anywhere, meet with anybody that is trying to do the right thing and trying to promote and assist in the mission that everybody on this panel is engaged in. So when it comes to clergy, listen, I've done the Exodus programs at Abyssinian, and wherever we go, if clergy is open to it, definitely. It's definitely there.
Right. Sharlene?
Absolutely.
Clergy, yes. I wanted to, maybe the judge I want to know if he heard of this from the Bureau of Prisons. Within the first 30 hours of release, are supposed to offer Social Security benefits, DTA, which is food stamps, and give stipends of $1,500. If a person is released within the first 30 hours, if they go to one of these agencies, this is looking at a document from the Bureau of Prisons. Have you heard of that?
I've never heard of that. Are you talking federal or state?
State.
Not New York.
Okay. What about on federal?
Is that something that's happening in Massachusetts, Sharlene?
Within the first 30 hours, yes.
Okay.
I bring the person released that day to the Social Security office where they apply for Social Security benefits. They give them emergency supplement. Then we go to DTA. They give them emergency food stamps and sign them up for the program.
Is that a state mandate in Massachusetts?
Not mandated. I don't think a lot of people know about it. That's why I was asking you if you've
Okay.
ever heard.
No, we definitely don't have that in New York. We
Okay.
definitely don't have that. Hell, we just got getting an ID. Like Vaughn said, you got $40. If you
Well,
upstate, you get a bus
ID here
ticket.
in Massachusetts is a new law. You have to have proof of residency. So,
Wow.
for instance, my husband needed to renew his driver's license. He needed a birth certificate. He was born in Germany. So we had to do a certificate of abroad, which took maybe 30 days
Right.
to renew his driver's license. You know, so I don't know if that law is in Massachusetts, the need to have proof of residency in order to obtain your ID or driver's license.
Wow.
That's a stumbling block here in Massachusetts right now. As far as services for women, Bill, yes, there are services here for women. I think that New York probably has some also. I'm not familiar with the services in New York, but I know there's some domestic violence services going on there, and I think that, you know what I mean, in trauma, mental health issues, treatment, I think that those are available anywhere, I would think.
Yeah.
But
I want to ask a question about for the women. Say a woman gets is pregnant when she gets arrested and then eventually sentenced, and while she's in prison and she's pregnant, what are the services that are afforded to her? And if she has the child while in prison, what happens to that child?
she's
I
treated
used to work.
she's going to be handcuffed to things when she travels to hospital visits and that sort of thing. Services, special programs, not that I know of, not here in Massachusetts.
In New York, yeah.
So when
New
she
York,
has the baby, then what?
Yeah.
What was the question?
Once she has the child, then what happens to that child?
Well, if she has family, then it would hopefully go to a family member. If not, the state would take custody. There's no facility here where the child stays with you. I know there are in other states, but there's not here in Massachusetts.
But for argument's sake, say she winds up doing, say, 5 years, right? And the child winds up going into foster care, whatever. Once she's released, is she able to then get that child back?
She got to go through the court proceedings.
Got to go, yeah.
They're not just going to hand the child back. She's got to go to court. She's got to do some things for them. I'm sure the Department of Children and Families gets involved, and she has to do some things in order to get the child back.
Well,
Well,
Judge,
depending on the case,
something
you know,
like that.
I just wanted to ask the judge, and I think Vaughn, you might have commented. Is that anything in New York like that for Vaughn and Judge? You can answer. What Sharlene was talking about for a woman like what Richard was asking about incarceration and having a child in while she's locked up. Is the procedure basically the same? They'll remove the child and then hopefully give it to family.
The old rules were the child was able, once you gave birth, the child was able to be with you for a year. Okay, and then after that, the child had to be removed.
Right.
Okay.
They would go to family. You know, remember, we have women facilities and we also have city. At Rikers Island, it was Rose M. Singer.
Right.
Place. And you could give birth. The child would remain with you during that gestational period, right, for a year. But then after that, the child had to be removed. And as Sharlene said, hopefully you had family. If not, they would be placed in a system. And when you came out, there were procedures you had to go through, which normally involved administration for child services or whatever children's service agency may have existed within the state or the city.
Wow. Awesome.
Is there a program in place to help walk them through this whole process?
Well, when I was at Rikers, I did a lot of work out of Rose M. Singers also, and there were women there that were pregnant, and because they were on parole, I was trying to get them back out in the street. And there was a program, and I can't remember the name of it, but it was on like 111th Street between Amsterdam and something. But they specifically were designed to deal with women coming home that either were pregnant or had a child, and they provided housing and services for them. I mean, you go in there, they had cribs and stuff like that. And so they were basically for people that were able to get out in a situation like this. I don't know too much about, and I think Judge Tingling mentioned the whole stipulation about them in the prison, how they can keep the baby for a certain amount of time, but then it has to, be taken out, But
and Vaughn, that was a big change too. There was there's no one size fits all. Okay,
right.
There were different programs, but then remember, especially during the crack era, you had so many women in, and the babies were born addicted.
That's right.
I mean, not only were the babies taken away before the year, okay, think about the process for getting them back.
Yep.
So,
well, I have a statement here, and I kind of think it's insulting, but I'm going to read it, and I'll let any one of you comment on it. Loving God says, what seems to happen with colored folks is that they're not good in committing to organizing like this consistently. All the information available is not consistently emphasized. I'm gonna read it again. He said, what seems to happen with colored folks is that they're not good in committing to organizing like this consistently. I don't know why would you feel that way when you have 5 people here that are trying to do their best. And organizations like this consistently, all the information available is not consistently emphasized. Anybody want to comment, question on that?
Yeah, I want to comment to that, because I'm a person that I don't like to point out the problem unless I'm willing to dive in and be a part of the solution.
Gotcha.
Because you got people that can get on all day long and be Captain Obvious, like, yeah. And I've always been a person that always talks to people about, what are you doing from where you are? What is it that you bring to the table where you can offer services to colored folks, to say, what are you doing as far as diving in and saying, this is what I'm bringing to the table, and can you help me, or can I help you do what you're doing? Because we're our worst critics. I mean, we spend more time beating ourselves in the head, while in a system that's designed to beat us in the head, you don't see other folks throwing their people in the street because they did something wrong. All cultures have bad and good, and most other cultures deal with theirs separately. They deal with theirs on their own. But I get upset when we talk about us being the only ones that, what about black on black crime? Or what about all the poor people? What about all that negative stuff? Well, my thing is, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
Yeah, absolutely.
To serve.
So anybody else want to comment on?
I totally disagree with that comment because of the work that I do. Absolutely. And somebody mentioned something about the clergy and stuff like this. I've been a minister for 50 years. And my ministry is the most important thing to me. It's more important to me than my job. My relationship with God is more important to me than my job. And if I have a good relationship with God, I'm going to do my job good, and I'm going to make sure I'm looking out for people. So I don't have a problem reaching out to people, talking to them. Reverend Butts invited me by Abyssinia Baptist Church because there was money available. There has been money available to integrate religion in institutions, to get thinking that, well, if we can get people involved in religion, maybe that might be insightful to keep them from, coming back into prison. So there have been efforts to try to do that. But me personally, that's my life. And the bottom line is, that's the number one thing in my life. So my care of people and wanting to help people is paramount in everything that I do.
Thank you. Anybody else want to comment real quick before I go on to something else?
Yeah.
Bill, I'm sorry. Before you do, unfortunately, I've got to leave.
Okay. No, you're always welcome back, Judge. And listen, we're not going to be here too long for the other panelists. I appreciate it. I'll give you 10 minutes.
I appreciate you, Judge.
Judge, thank you. You're always welcome back. Rich will schedule up. Like I said, I want each and every one of you to have your own time for a good, strong hour, because each and every one of you have so much that, to try to condense it in an hour was unfair to you. But thank you for coming. This is Real Talk. You're always welcome back, Judge. I'll see you soon at our other location.
A real pleasure, Judge. A real pleasure.
It's been a real pleasure, Judge. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So, T. Little, what's up? She said Women Prison Association is a nonprofit, I believe, that assists women and children. for that question. Brenda wanted to comment. She said, yo, that's not true. Look at this panel. Real talk. Absolutely. Mark, he said, loving God. He said, yo, sir, you're whack. He said, my statement is not against anyone here, your brother. Caravan of love. Okay. First and foremost, let me tell you something, everybody. I read what's here. It's real talk, having a conversation. I open it up. Sometimes people I'll put it out there, whether I like it or not, whether I agree with it. You know, Rich will tell you, this is real talk.
Yeah.
Straight shooters. We'll listen. If you say it, you put it in. If you thought it and you didn't type it, then you give us all the opportunity to comment on it. We want everybody to have a fair say, but sometimes, like, think about before you type it. You know what I'm trying to say? Because the bottom line is,
Wait, I just want to make a comment, Bill, to that last organization organizing us. We don't organize. What was it again?
What was the statement? I'm sorry, Sharlene.
The problem with us is we don't organize or something like that.
He said, what seems to happen is with colored folks, if they're not good in committing to organizing like this consistently. All the information available is not consistently emphasized.
I just wanted to say that we've been organizing since Harriet Tubman to Martin Luther King with marches and students up until today. We've been organizing. We wouldn't be sitting here on the panel because
got to bother leave off that one, love.
Voice today, right? And what we need is opportunities. Now, that's how they can help. Give us opportunities. Give us those bank loans that we need to start our businesses, to buy those better books for our children in school to learn, So we've been organizing for centuries. So I don't know, what they meant by that comment, but we're sitting here built on the backs of our predecessors who organized, right?
Right.
Listen, all I'm looking for is somebody that's bringing something to the table. I'm not looking for somebody that's complaining about what's on the table. And complaining about, who brought theirs to the table. Where's yours?
What are you doing? What are you doing? Yep. What are you doing?
This reminds me of the person that brought the bad food. They say, yo, who made that potato salad?
Yeah. And they're eating everything else except the potato salad, right? Yeah.
Right.
Let me just read some comments real quick. He says, my statement is not against anyone here. I'm your brother, caravan of love. But to answer that, Mark, he says, caravan of bashing colored folks. That sounds like it to me. A loving God person doesn't come off like you, sir. Man, Brenda says, to God be the glory for this panel. Keep doing good God's work. You do it for the cause and not the applause. Absolutely. It's about that time because I love you guys. I want you to come back. Like I said, once you hear Real Talk, you're always welcome back. Richard set up a schedule for you each to have your own individual times. But what we do when we close out with Real Talk, we always ask people to give some positive affirmation. So Sharlene, I'll start with you first, and then Vaughn, and then Rich, and then Richard, you and I, we can close out. So thank you again. I really appreciate it. It was so informative. I always tell people I could do a party and have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. I do something positive, and it's like I'm pulling teeth for somebody just to like it and share it. So I ask everybody if this is your first time watching Real Talk Chronicles on YouTube, subscribe to it and share it. If you're watching it on Facebook, share it there, please. And listen, I know there's a lot of people out here that we know of people that are incarcerated that needed to hear this information here. We'll invite these people back so you can get one-on-one conversation with these people, and you can ask them all the questions you want. Let's keep it positive. Go ahead, Sharlene.
I wanted to say thank you for allowing me on this panel. Information is power, right. And so I feel more powerful with more of the information I got tonight from all of the people that's here. I want to say that it all starts at home. I believe it all starts at home. If we want to change our communities, we have to look at our home, and parents have to be accountable for what they know is going on in the home and they're allowing in the home. There's some of that going on too. Some of us know what's going on, what our children are bringing in the home, what they're doing, and it starts at home. And then we have to look at the mental health piece too, because there's a lot of untreated mental health going on in our culture, in the Black culture. We don't want mental health services. We don't want therapy. We don't think we need it. We go to church, we're gonna get prayed over. Like, being open-minded to mental health counseling is another piece of the remedy of all this, you know. And then we got to remember that, you know, prison doesn't define who a person is. People make mistakes, you know, and some of us got to be on the front line, willing to go to bat for these people and be willing to extend a hand to them when they come home, and, you know, and take care of our own. You know, I got into my field because I wanted to help my people.
Right.
You know, and so I have a job that I feel really productive in, and it's very, you know, it's worthwhile for me to do. I'm getting a lot out of it, and I'm helping a lot of people, and I'm grateful to be able to be in this position, you know. And there are a lot of Black women, a lot of high positions now that we have to also applaud. You know, we have senators, we have a vice president that's an African-American woman. So we have to look at some of the accomplishments. Everything's not all bad. Some of this is going to take time to change, to reform. There's a lot of things going on behind closed doors. I go to a lot of summits that people don't know is going on. DOC is trying in Massachusetts to work with the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security. They're trying to, you know, bring mental health into this piece and all of that. So there is some good things going on that we don't know about right now if you're not in the arena, you know. So just on a positive note, you know, just
thank you for your service. And Michelle Lee said the same thing you said about it starts at home. And Sister Brenda, she says you understood the assignment, sis. So applaud. We applaud you. Vaughn, give us some positive affirmation, brother.
Now, first, I want to say it's a pleasure being involved in this, and you know, I'm real proud of Richard, you know, because he's always been involved in the community and stuff. And when he asked me to be involved in things like this, he knows I'm always available. But this was amazing. I really am happy I got a chance to meet you, Sharlene. The work you're doing is amazing. And back in the day, I haven't done it in a while. I used to travel around the country with Each One Teach One and mentoring program. And it was a bunch of guys standing in front of a bunch of people. And they would often say to us, well, where's the women on your thing? You would have been one of the first women with us because of the great work that you're doing and stuff like this. But keep it up. We really appreciate that. You know, and Bill, man, thank you so much for, you know, including me in this. I'm available at any time. I have never, ever said no to Richard when he's asked me to be involved with anything, because it's been so positive. And the work that he's doing now, I'm so proud of him to see the work that he's doing now, because he's in a situation now where he can reach areas that might not have been normally reached by people of his sort, meaning people who have lived in the community, know what it's about, and can bring their ideas to the table. So this was a pleasure, and I am always available.
Thank you. Rich, before you give your positive affirmation, Loving God asked us one question. He says, Forster, my point is, after this meeting, who can we contact for emergency resources? Now, my question is, before the panel even tries to do that, what emergencies or what resources are you looking for exactly? Because the bottom line is that's a wide spectrum. So give me a specific, and if they can answer it, then we'll put it in. Shout out to Jacob Ingram in the building, Daily Arts and Survival owner at Ingram Taxes, supporting. See you soon, brother. Tracy says, wonderful conversation. Good information was shared. I appreciate each of you and all you do. 40 Dog, what's going on? Bill, you always have a great show. Thank you. Shout out to Real Talk. And Rich, go ahead, brother. Oh, Brenda said, excuse me. Yes, Vaughn. Remember you were on our Zoom. So Sister Brenda was there too with it. Exactly.
Hey, listen, first of all, I want to thank all of my people, man, that showed the love, man, and came on to spread the knowledge and the wealth of knowledge that they all possess. And it's a huge myth that, you know, that we're not out there fighting this fight. You know, we just need to come together and fight this fight together. You know, we can sit at the table and talk about a lot of stuff that's going on, but we're about solving problems, not just talking about them. You know, and that's why I love, you know, these guys, man. Vaughn, like he said, man, he's never said no to me. Judge Tingling never said no to me. And my sister, that's my sister. She better never say no to me. But you know, she never let me down.
And I never said no to you either.
You sure right. When I asked you if I could bring this group on, you was like, absolutely, you know. And I appreciate Bill for having this forum, because it's so important that something like this is out here for people to just tune into and get a whole wealth of information and knowledge. The brother came just asking the questions about, in case of an emergency and all that. I've always given my number, and Bill is my witness. I give my phone number on this show to say, if there's something that I can do to help you, call me.
Right.
I'm not about the BS.
Nah.
But if you call me and I got some connection for you, I'll connect you to it. And if I don't have it, I'll call somebody that may have it. Like Vaughn, like my sister, like Judge Tingling. We all support each other, and that's what it's all about. So my positive affirmation is just that. We're here. We're putting the work in. If you want to step out of that bubble that you're pointing fingers in and say, hey, I got some time, let me contribute to the cause and let me do something from where I'm at.
Mhm.
Or I'm doing something, and can I get some help from you guys to help me do this? But don't just constantly call in and chime in, complaining and pointing out existing problems. Tell me what you're doing and tell me some ideas that you have that we can solve these problems.
Right. Absolutely. Right. Everybody, that's Real Talk. Listen, Sister Brenda said, Rich is that guy. She said, she says, thank you, babe. I wasn't going to say, I ain't calling you.
Full disclosure, that's my woman.
Absolutely. Exactly. Barry Hammonds is in the building. He says, great topics. I like I said, Tracy, what's up, sis? She says, wonderful conversation, good information was shared. I appreciate each one of you and all that you do. So, that positive, this is what this Real Talk is about. It's about getting out there, spreading the word. We got a platform, we can share it, tell people, anybody, anytime you all want to bring somebody back that has some information, just tell Rich, he's the point on this, and we'll put him on the show and give it out there. It's on YouTube to be shared and spread it all around all the world. So the bottom line is, this is what we do. My positive affirmation is, let's just do what Rich said and what you all have said. Oh, shout out to Norm Davis, our other host. He's chiming in from North Carolina or Mississippi. I don't know where he's at right now. Appreciate you too, brother. And Norm I hope one day I'll have Norm on with you all too. He was talking about, because you mentioned, Sharlene, mental illness, and Norm was a former law enforcement officer like myself, and due to certain situations at the time in his life, he tried to commit suicide, and he talks about that. He comes on the show and he talks about that. And he's a big statured man too, 6'8", and athlete, like Rich and myself, played ball overseas and stuff like that, dealing with the powers that to be in law enforcement. I can talk about that and he can talk about that. And sometimes that pressure gets on your back. And I think it got to him. And at the time we had lost contact, but I told him once he tried that and he failed, God had a plan for him. He and for those that know about a 38 gun, those guns don't mess up. We call those guns unreliable. And for those guns to dry fire, it didn't fire. And he tried it twice. And then he goes to his backyard and he shoots it in the air and it goes off. So God had a plan for him.
Yeah.
And I told his big ass, and excuse me for cursing, I said, if you ever try that again, I'll climb that mountain. Because I love that man. That's my guy. Nice. And I would hope somebody would do that to me. So I extend that olive branch to everybody. Just stay positive. If you can't, like Rich said, if you don't have anything nice to say, shut the hell up. That's Real Talk.
Yes.
And he said,
I said, if you don't have nothing to offer to the table.
Well, then I said, let me say, I use my name. Bill Foster said, if you don't have anything nice to say, you don't have anything at all. You know what I'm saying? I walk tall too, baby.
I'm Bill, like
So
like I mean, either you at the table or you on the menu.
Absolutely.
So you provide a table for us to come and bring something to the table that we can all eat off of.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
absolutely. That is Vaughn Jackson. That is Sharlene Blake. That is Richard Williams. I am Bill Foster. This is Real Talk Chronicles. We'll see you next Monday when we'll come back. The lineup. Assemblyman Al Taylor is the first Monday of the month. The second Monday of the month is Dr. Marilyn Corder. The third Monday of the month is Allison Williams, the First Lady of Def Jam. And the fourth Monday is Malika and I, my wife and I. We come and we converse with you about anything. And every Wednesday, I got Richard Williams, I got Norm Davis, I got Ty Butler, Kevin Branzetti, and Chuck Richards. And we come and we dissect the things. I'm sure we'll pick up on what happened in Nashville. We was in the chat room. We was having a bad conversation about heroes and stuff like that. We'll pick that up. Tune in next Wednesday. We'll bring it up. Good night, everybody.
Good night, guys. Take care.
Peace.
Night. Good night.
Good night.